In this video, I'll refinish the top of this end table. As you can see, it's in pretty bad shape. It's got lots of water stains and just general wear to the finish. So let's get started. The first step is to remove whatever's left of the original finish. And in this case, I'm using citrus strip, and it's pretty straightforward. You just slop it on and let it sit, and then scrape it off. And just want to make sure you get it on thick enough and let it sit long enough before you try to take it off. I usually let it sit maybe anywhere from 15 minutes to 30 minutes, and just keep an eye on the finish. And when it's ready to come off, just give it a scrape like this here. I'm using a metal spatula to take it off. Some people like to use plastic because there's less risk of scratching the finish or scratching the wood, but I've never had a problem with the metal. And it's also good to go with the grain of the wood whenever you can. In this case, this has got pieces of veneer on top that with the grain going in all different directions, so I'm not trying to follow the grain in this case. And once I've got all the stripper goop scraped off, then I wipe it down with some mineral spirits and 4/0 steel wool. And this just helps to clean off all the residue. And then wipe it down with a paper towel. And you might need to do this a few times just to get all the gunk off. And there it is, and still looks pretty bad. So on to the next step. So the next step is to wash down the tabletop with some oxalic acid. And oxalic acid is sold as wood bleach. You can usually get it in hardware stores. I get mine in powder form and just mix it with some water. And this will help to get rid of some of those dark water stains on the top. And just wipe it on and then let it dry. And then if the stains are still there, I might try another application. And again, just wipe it on again and let it dry. So in this case, the oxalic acid did help to lighten the stains, although you can see that there's still some light stains on there. So looks like I'm going to have to do some sanding on here to get rid of the rest of the staining. And of course, before you sand it, make sure you clean off any of the residue from the oxalic acid. And just be careful not to get on your skin or breathe it in or anything like that. But before I sand, I'm going to try steaming out a dent on the top. And the way you do this is to wet down the dent with some water and then put a wet cloth over it, and then use, for a small dent like this, I use a soldering iron. And you put the wet cloth over the dent and then put the soldering iron on top of the cloth, and then it helps to steam out the compressed wood fibers and hopefully raise the dent. And it's working pretty well. I just do it a few times until it looks like it's come up as far as it's going to come up. And now it's time to sand. And I usually try not to use an orbital sander or any kind of power sander because they tend to leave little squiggly sanding marks. But in this case, the top was so bad that I decided to use one. And it worked out really well and ended up taking out most of those stains. And once the sanding is done, then it's time to stain the top. And I usually start with this pre-stain conditioner, and it just helps to make sure that the stain is absorbed evenly over the top. And I just follow directions on the can and basically just wipe it on and let it soak in for a few minutes and then wipe off any excess. And then I put the stain on right away after that. And here's the stain. And in this case, I'm using Varathane American Walnut. It's an oil stain, and it works pretty well. And it's a pretty good match when you're just doing a tabletop like this. And I just wipe it on and let it sit for, in this case, I think I just let it sit for a minute or so, or maybe even less, and then wipe it off. You can leave it on longer if you want it to be darker. But just be careful, because if you leave it on too long, sometimes it gets sticky and it's hard to get off, especially if the temperature is warm and dry wherever you're working. And once the stain is dried, then it's time to apply the top coat. And in this case, I'm spraying on some Deft satin lacquer. It's pretty easy. You just spray it on, and it usually dries within a few minutes. And put on as many coats as you want. And then I usually let it dry at least a day or two, and then you can buff it out or wax it or clean up any dust particles that may have got caught in the finish. And that's it. It looks good. I didn't have to do much to the bottom. I just touched it up here and there. And that's it. Thanks for watching.